Your dog rearranges the furniture?
Yeah, well, she arranges when she has anxiety like that. Because she's very, what's the word? What do they call it?
I don't know.
There's a name for it. Separation anxiety that dogs get. And she gets it bad. So when we're gone for like 4 to 6 hours or whatever, she'll get nervous.
Yeah.
And so anyway, what's up with you, man?
Nothing. I'm laughing today.
A lot to unload. I was gonna say, if you here, I'm gonna kick this conversation off with. I was gonna say, if you don't call me soon, I'm gonna smelt all of my gold statues.
Who said that?
Sean Penn, because they was talking about the president of Ukraine speaking at the Oscars, and that
did he speak at the Oscars?
No, but Sean Penn, you know how he's a big guy of throwing big threats out there.
Oh yeah.
And said that he was going to melt all of his Oscars if they didn't invite President Zelensky to speak at the Oscars.
Oh my gosh.
So we'll start it off. We could start off today with that.
I didn't hear any of that. First of all, I don't watch garbage like that, like the Oscars.
Yeah.
I can't even force myself anymore. Like when I was little, even as an adult, I always said, next year, I'm going to be up there next year. Next year's my year. I'm going to be up there. Because you always dream when you're in acting. I mean, you always dream of being at the Oscars and getting a couple of minutes to get up and speak and all that. But it's not what it was. It's
no, not. And I think that's really loaded too, because you got to think like there's an idea that was always presented to us entertainers that was like, that's the pinnacle of what we do. That's where, personality wise or whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters is the work you put in, or the art. You know how I feel about saying art, but the art you put out, that's where you're recognized for your work.
Love you get.
Oh my gosh. Green light. But and so now I feel like once you realize how Hollywood really works with publicists and the contracts and the game that it really is, it's like those award ceremonies are so silly. It's just like, come on.
Well, I think in the original day, it was a chance to get together and have a party with your friends, but it was also to show off what you did and to tell your friends how well they did, right?
Right.
And even in little old podunk Knoxville where we are, they used to have an award show. It was for the what was it called? It was called the Knoxville Theater Guild Coalition. I don't know what it was called. Knoxville Area Theater Coalition or something like that. And I don't know if you remember this.
No, I don't think I was. If I was in the game, I don't do theater. It's not my favorite thing. So I wouldn't understand. I wouldn't know. Well,
so they used to do an award show, and they did it at the Bijou. It was like a big to-do, and they would have the whole show, and then they would have like a banquet or whatever get together at the bistro next door, where everybody could go mingle, tingle, and jingle, I guess. But so it was so weird though. I got nominated one year for Best Supporting Actor in Little Shop of Horrors because I was the dentist in that show. And it was like, oh man, I got nominated, and it's just so weird. I think actors have it in their head about fame. I mean, I know I started acting because, well, for one, I was something I was good at, but I also wanted fame, I mean, I had a girlfriend. The first show I was ever in, I got a girlfriend that was in the show too. And I was like, oh, My life has changed. I know what I'm doing, man. It's so stupid.
Heck, I got a wife out of a movie I did.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, but and at the same, keep going. Sorry.
But for me, it was, that's what it was about. So when they did these awards and everything, I used to buy into, this is going to sound really negative, and I don't mean it to sound negative, but I used to buy into camaraderie and unity, and like everybody just loves everybody, and we're getting together, and it's just everybody's just getting together to be friends and just to, it's so, I used to buy into that, right? And it's just nobody else really does. They take advantage of people like me. I don't know about you, but
yeah, I would say me, because I have that same mentality towards all things, whether it's construction work or movie making. It's like, we're all together building something, and if somebody's not up to level, it's what we're building is not going to look great, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I
don't like I don't like being a stepping stool for anyone, but I've allowed myself to be a stepping stool for
100%.
a lot of
that's
people.
Because morality is different for us. Like
it is.
I've always kind of like, I want to say look down at my dad, because he's so forgiving and so benefit of the doubt. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing like I've got those genes too.
Right.
Like I'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt, including myself, but like, and here's the thing that gets me is that it's like, oh, well, if you're like that, you have no place in this business.
Right.
Like this is for the thick skinned and that's the only way you'll make it. And I'm like, bullshit. No way. Like that shouldn't be the stipulation to begin with for any kind of industry.
Right. But when I realized that everybody's out for themselves, and even the people who are the most, I use the word liberal loosely because I don't think what is considered liberal today is really what liberal is, because I consider, if you look in the traditional sense, and we talked about this a lot, it's a traditional sense, that's what we are.
Yeah.
But people today would go, oh, you're not that at all. But you look it up. I mean, research the word. So in that respect, I look at the people who are in this industry and typically are, claimants of liberalism or whatever to be liberal, but then they turn right around and they're just climbing the political ladder. They don't care what they do. And it's not about, they don't really care that you're involved. Does it help them? And dude, it's almost like I met this Buddhist guy a long time ago, and I was at his apartment, just happened stance through a friend, and we started talking about it. And I was like, yeah, well, tell me your Buddhism, man. Explain it to me. And he's like, well, things only exist because you need them. So if I need this pencil, right? If I need it, it exists. But if I don't need it, it doesn't exist. So in other words, I need the pencil right now because I'm going to write something down, and then I'm going to lay the pencil down, and then I'm going to go to the store, right? I'm going to take my list that I wrote down, my grocery list. I'm going to go to the store. That pencil ceases to exist because no material doesn't really exist. It only exists because you need it to mentally. Okay? You follow this?
I'm there, I guess.
So that pencil doesn't exist. It only exists because I need it at the moment. But if I walk away from it, it doesn't exist anymore because I don't need it. So it's not really there. Right. So I asked the guy, I'm like, well, why do you live in this place, man? why don't you just imagine something bigger that you need? And he's like, well, that's a different story. It's not, you just don't will it into existence. It's by birth or by training, you're taught that things just automatically appear because you need them. Your subconscious already knows that you need it. You don't have to think that you need it. Your subconscious just already knows. And it will continue to exist because you might not know you're going to need it in a minute. So if I can look down and I see this pencil laying here, but I don't need it. Of course, I need it right now because I have to use it as an example for what I'm saying, right? But if I lay it down, I can still see it, but I don't need it. Well, it's still there because my subconscious knows that I'm probably going to need that pencil in a few minutes. And this is how it was explained to me. You follow that?
Yeah. So where are we going?
Yeah.
Where does this conversation exist? Where does this conversation exist? And where does it not?
What were we talking? I told you that because it had to do with something. It was about acting. It was
has to do with like fame in Hollywood and movies and award ceremonies. And
when I learned that people who preach unity, they preach inclusion, they preach all these things, they think like that. They have that sort of, and I don't know that Buddhism is necessarily everything this guy told me, but that's what he told me. They think like that. You only exist to help them. And when you're not helping them, you don't exist. Makes sense?
Well, and I'm sure if you brought that up to a person that says this about these inclusion things and yada, yada, yada.
Right.
And be like, well, you only want that because it helps you. You probably wouldn't even get that sentence out of your mouth before you were already being told something else.
Exactly.
Like of how you're closed-minded or whatever else. And the fact of the matter is like, it's like all things, man. Movies, all this stuff for me is just so overcomplicated. Right. You know, like I've said it from the beginning, like movies were made to separate from reality. Like they were created to pull people away from their real lives. Yeah. To almost have like a mental vacation. And now all of a sudden it's become this like, well, this is the most important movie ever made. And they say it about every single movie. And you're like, okay.
Right.
You know, again, San Andreas to me.
I've never seen that.
One of the great, golly. If California were to truly break off into the ocean, the only person that could save it is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And that movie proves it. And that movie, and we've talked about this a million times, but like that movie to me is the epitome of what movies should be. You know, I'll say at the Oscars last night, the coolest thing that I thought they did was they had fan favorite films.
Oh,
they've never had that before. And so like,
because everything leading up to this was not a fan favorite that won.
Well, and also though, it did seem like fanboys of Zack Snyder were really pushing for it because he got a bunch that I was like, I don't think.
Oh, really?
I mean, that movie was cool, but you know, Army of the Dead and the Snyder cut of Justice League. I mean, those were fun, but I don't think The Flash going backwards and changing time was the number one movie moment of 5. I mean, they had bullet time. The first time you see Neo dodging bullets in Matrix was number 5, and I'm like, hang on a minute. Now, and maybe it was a visual effects thing, and I missed that. But they counted down the top 5 of this deal.
Did they include when you found out that Austin Powers and Dr. Evil were actually brothers?
Oh, no. That's funny. No, but that's the thing. I thought the Oscars were cool because I'm like, oh, they're stepping into kind of my mindset on all this. Right. I had this conversation with Curran about like what I think the Oscars should be and what he thinks they should be. And I was like, I think this is movies that you could watch over and over again that everybody wants to see and has seen. And he was like, that every Marvel movie would win. And I'm like, well, maybe they should.
They should have won. I mean,
maybe Marvel should have been up there. You know, like, I don't know. Maybe.
RDJ had it right when he got up with all the Avengers when they were presenting an award, and he pointed the fact out that movie had the biggest, highest grossing of the year, and it had most attendance, and it had everything, but yet no nomination. Something's wrong, and he didn't say it like that, but that's what he insinuated. And I'm like, yeah.
And that's what I said to Curran, and I saw it from his perspective too. But you know, it boils down to what you're saying is that the whole room is full of people, human beings that only move forward because they need something from someone else to make themselves look better.
Absolutely.
And I think that's wild because it's that way in all businesses.
Well, and it drained for me, I've always had this childlike love for acting and movies and makeup and pretending. And I mean, you can look at a lot of these people, like the Goldbergs, for instance. Our family loves the Goldbergs. We accidentally fell in love with the Goldbergs because we wanted to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It came on it was like the fall premiere, and it was the first episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was on ABC.
Right.
And we watched it, and I thought, God, this is really boring. And I was just like, oh, man, that was not fun.
So y'all flipped over to Fox.
No, it came on after. Goldbergs just happened to come on after Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm like, well, let's check this out. And, dude, it was like, that's what we showed up that night for, you know? It was like,
that's funny.
In what we hoped in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we found in the Goldbergs. And Goldbergs, it's great because it's nostalgia. It's it speaks to you if you grew up in the 80s, especially, because everything Adam Goldberg talks about, I lived Nintendo and things like that. Your brother or sister comes and turns the Nintendo off because you couldn't save it, so you had to pause it, but then they turned it off and you lost all your progression, that sort of thing. So looking at him, he just had all these videotapes he took as a kid. So that entire show is just about his childlike love of movie making. He just got out and made it with his friends in the driveway. And, you know, I didn't have a camera. We weren't that. I mean, we're poor, so I didn't have a camera, but I had my brain, I had my imagination. So when I got old enough to jump into it with theater and things, I took that chance. But, you know, when you learn that people only, and these are the Sean Penns of the world, you only exist to help them. And when they don't need you, you don't exist anymore. And it's not helping the world. You're not helping the world by that because people see through it. You know, you can see things. What does it say? What's that quote about a child can see everything? It's like a child can see everything because a child expects nothing or something like that. Anyway, I forget the quote, but that's the thing. It's like a child can see through you. So I look at myself as that. I still have the childlike love for, you know, when we do these film competitions and stuff like this, we go out and it's for fun. It's supposed to be for fun. It's supposed to be for fun. You get
100%.
to pretend, you get to create, you get to hang out with your friends. That's what it's about. But it stopped being that because
well, it stopped being that for us because we grew up,
I guess.
But we saw what it really was. We saw the man behind the curtain. You know,
I
mean, you can go all the way back to like 1950s Hollywood, and it's
sure.
Well, it's completely like what we knew of it coming up was like, oh man, so glamorous, so whatever. And then you find out like what was going on in the 1950s is the exact kind of same stuff that happens now. It's never changed. It's just now with social media and all this other stuff, you see what it really is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like, that childlike sense goes away because you're like,
well, you get drained.
People don't care about the story. Yeah, people don't care about the story. People don't care, you know, and maybe that's our faults too for thinking that our stories are so important that they need to be told.
Sure. And I've been to far too many award ceremonies where I just, you know, for me, in the beginning, it was like, oh, I got to win an award. But then you realize that it's probably not going to lean in your favor after a while. So you just make movies that everybody's going to talk about. So my goal was to say, you know what? I don't care if somebody decides that I get an award or not. I'm going to make a movie that everybody walks out talking about. And I think I've accomplished that quite a bit. You know, maybe not. I don't know. Well, maybe they talk about it for the wrong reasons, but whatever.
A cool director friend of mine said that awards are created solely for the people that want them.
Yeah, it's a good
Well, and it killed me because when I heard that, I was like, no. And then I was like, yeah, he's right. Oh my gosh. Well, and when you learn too, like I didn't know this, but you campaign. Like you go do all these meetings and you pay all this money to even be nominated and considered. And it's like, it's not like a room full of people that just sit down and say, you know what? This movie was good. You know what? Iron Man was great.
Yeah.
Let's throw it up there. No, it's like, and again, when you learn like how the machine kind of works,
right?
You just, it takes that childlike,
it does
sense and joy away from it. And also,
well, it watches.
Go ahead. In the same respects of like what you were saying, like I got into this because I found out as a little kid I was great at playing pretend.
Yep.
And it's solely because I believed it.
Right.
Like solely believed that I was fighting aliens.
Yeah.
From Aliens, Ridley Scott's Aliens in my backyard. And I believed it. So I was like, oh, you can make a living doing this? Cool.
Yeah. Watch Shyamalan's movies that he made when he was young. Dude, he just set up he shot his own stuff. He shot himself. He'd set up the camera and make his own movies that he was in. And it was exactly like what you're talking about,
Yeah. And I think
he doesn't care what people think about his movies, obviously.
Well, neither does Tyler Perry. And that's what's awesome. Is Tyler Perry, man, I love that dude. His mindset on all of it is just like, I make the movies I want to make. I don't care one bit
what people think.
Like what it's like I make them for me. And I'm like, yes. And so you get into all this stuff and people are like, well, if you just continue to do that, you'll never be successful or whatever. Right. And you're like, whatever, fine. I've been to a couple award ceremonies, nothing like the Oscars. I've also never been to one where Will Smith smacked the shit out of Chris Rock on stage.
Well, yeah.
And
I don't think that was real, right?
I mean, dude, that was the first thought. That was the first thought. That was like, oh, this is scripted.
It was 100% scripted. I guarantee it.
I don't know, man. The reaction.
He didn't even touch him.
He slapped him.
He did not touch him.
He slapped him.
I didn't.
What angles you saw?
I don't watch that garbage. I don't watch stuff like that. The only thing I care about is the in memoriam video. That's the only thing I care about at the Oscars.
Oh, where they got hyped on this one?
I didn't watch it yet. I haven't watched it.
Oh my gosh, they got hyped on it. Like it was like.
That's the only thing people care about.
I'll probably just get railroaded for this, but it was like a celebration of the lives of these people. Like it was cool. Like it was cool. It wasn't like it was like, you know what? These people had an impact in making movies. Boom.
Right.
And it was like, oh man.
It's the only honest thing in the whole show, I think.
Yeah.
To me.
Well,
but it's again, I woke up this morning and that's the thing people are talking about is this staged combat slap that
me and Ashley were talking about that Questlove won just after it. And nobody could pay attention to what Questlove said. And his movie is phenomenal. He made a really cool movie. And the thing is it was completely overshadowed. Dude,
watch and see. This is all to. Okay, we know Will Smith and Jada. We know all this sketchy, dark life that they follow now, and this was marketing, and it goes back. That's what all this is about, anyway. It goes back to marketing. I guarantee you, he's going to win that award, and they're sitting right up front, and all this. It was Chris Rock took the fall for Will Smith, his friend. He took the fall so that Will Smith could get up and cry later and say, like King Richard, because I did see this clip, like King Richard, he defended his family. Oh, and
sure.
And everybody goes, oh, like you defended your family a minute ago. That's so... And I'm like, all of you are just going to eat this up. You're just not even going to look at the turd sandwich, right?
Well,
just eat it without looking at it.
Is it's uncertain. The fact that we could even consider it being scripted is, I think, a great thing.
I've seen wrestling punches or wrestling slaps that looked more real.
Well, it's a great thing that people can even consider, like, and this may have backfired. And all right, in the event that all of this is just a big Hollywood scheme, in some sense it backfired, because what it does is it just shows how much more BS media and Hollywood really is.
It is.
And the fact that when it happened, we were watching it live. And when it happened, things were, they had to like reset it's like they had to censor what was being said and all this stuff because it was on live TV.
Yeah.
So it jumped to, and we were all like, what just happened? And the first thought amongst the group of people that were watching was like, oh, that's all, come on, man, this is all scripted. And to me, that's the greatest thing that came of it, is like, come on now. It's like when we realized that reality TV was scripted, and you can start noticing like, oh, nobody, come on, and right. So the idea of that is what makes it kind of backfire if it is a plan. Dude. And if it's not a plan, I mean, who knows?
It's a plan. Chris Rock leaned into it. He set himself, his hands were behind his back so that he could, have his balance. He leaned his face forward. The camera was positioned just right if you watch. I mean, this sounds like the Kennedy assassination again, but it's the camera was just right to where when you set up a camera for a stage punch or slap or screen, whatever, you're going to give it space. You know what I'm saying? And it was there.
Sure, but on a live TV like that, I mean, it depends on what camera's on, because they did have different angles of all of it. And
it's hard to believe that this is what we're discussing today.
No, that's what I love about it. That's what I told Ashley. It's like, I mean, you want to really throw the world off on something? Throw Will Smith punching Chris or slapping Chris Rock in the face. Oh, people will be talking about this for a week. And the big thing that I woke up to today was like, I don't want to talk about this because I don't care anymore.
Like, and that's
I'm
the only thing I saw.
I'm not going to let this control my narrative this whole week. Well,
you know as well as I do what it takes to get into character when you're doing something, and you really, as an actor, as a believable actor, you have to believe what you're saying and doing. You can't be you. You have to get into that and you have to believe it. So when I watched this morning, I'm watching Will Smith go up, they're laughing, and then he gets up and walks up. I mean, the camera is in position to follow him. It's in position to follow him already. He's walking up. They've got the jib moving already. He goes up, and you can tell this is all play. This is play. I could tell it, right? Then when he goes back and sits down and he starts, keep my wife's name out your mouth. Then he started believing what he was saying. He started believing his lines. I could see it happen. He sunk into it. So what you do is, I think, as an actor, you sink into that character. So you're not just reciting lines, you're now believing what you're saying. And this is what I tell anybody who wants to be an actor is like, well, first of all, don't act. If you act, I'm going to know it. I want to believe what you're saying. People tell me people tell me they don't know if I'm being real or not. Even when I'm being real with them, I'm not acting like it means a lot to me when people say it. It's like, well, I never know when you're being serious or not. And I'm like, that's good. I want to hang on to that.
Yeah, I don't think about any of that.
I know.
I think it's so funny because like my whole like train of thought on it is I'm not going to put any more hurdles in front of me than I already have to.
No, absolutely. And it works for different things. Yeah, for different people.
And that's 100% the truth that people don't realize. Like, anyway, Keep going.
So you can go overboard with it and you ruin your entire performance. If you,
100%.
You can think it too much, and then
the joke that they made fun of all night was House of Gucci. Look at that.
Oh, really?
I never watched it, but
I haven't either. I heard it's not good.
But they said the accents, like they ripped a whole bunch of movies last night that were like, oh,
okay,
that hurt.
Nice.
That hurt.
I'm that. I guess I'm like the Addams family of acting. Like I watch for the train wrecks to happen and I kind of enjoy it. This sounds mean, but I'm like, oh yeah, I like this.
See, I don't, because I'm like, it just again takes more of that magic away. Like,
does it?
Yeah, like I don't like confrontation anyway at all.
It does the opposite for me.
And I'm like, ugh.
I look at it as, of course, I know you don't like the word art, but for me, if I say art, I'm really meaning the raw. I don't like when people co-opt the word. I like for the word to be for real. It's like the word woke, right?
Right.
So woke has been co-opted. And when woke first came out, woke was you're awake to the truth of what's really going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're awake to, oh my God, the government all works together to hurt the people, or they've been lying about this, or whatever. That's what woke was. And I was like, oh,
right.
Cool. I mean, I don't like that there's a word for it, but I'm cool. People are woke now. People are starting to understand the facts that I already know for a long time, so I don't feel alone anymore. And then all of a sudden, it's the Mandela effect or whatever. It's like, hold up, wait. When did woke become, if you don't think like me in this, again, we go back to modern liberal ideology of things. If you don't think that, you're not woke. I'm woke. You're not. When did it become that? Because it wasn't that in the beginning. So I go, hold up. When did this happen? Anyway.
Yeah, well, it goes to our thing too. Like I said, I'm about to use a buzzword to describe buzzwords, but I hate buzzwords. And it becomes one of those things where, like for example, woke now doesn't hold the same weight it once did because it's overused and
Absolutely
diluted.
I don't like when they come on and say this is raw art, because if the Oscars come on and they say raw art, I know it's not raw art. I know that there's millions of dollars behind it. Even the most independent movie that they'll ever promote on the Oscars is far out of my independent understanding or my independent capabilities. Independent to me is like, man, we made a really good something with $5. That's independent. It's not what they say it is, but yet people who aren't in the business, they're going to watch the Oscars and they're going to think that independent means $1 million budget. Hi, we just want to say thanks for listening to Hump Day Conversations with Jeff and Linds. We really appreciate it. We want to give a super good shout out to Jacob Boyd with Post Retro for his invaluable guidance as we put this thing together. Go listen to his super swell podcast, Talking Indies in My Undies, wherever you find podcasts. Don't forget that a new episode of our little show drops every Wednesday, good Lord willing, to help you get over Hump Day with some laughs and whatnot. Be sure to slap the like buttons wherever and whenever possible, share and subscribe. And if you like what you hear and feel so inclined, go become a patron on Patreon at www.patreon.com/HumpDC. That's HUMPDC.